Noted. Okay, with that, are we okay to move on, Carrie?
Yes, but minutes are approved. Thank you.
Okay, comments from the public regarding items not on the agenda. So do we have anything there?
So this is, if anyone from the public would like to comment at this time, you can raise your hand. It looks like most of the folks we have here are probably for our first item. And we did receive one comment, but it was for the first item. So we can talk about that when we get there.
Okay, sounds great. Is there any statements of conflict of interest today? Okay, let's move right into the first regular agenda item, and it's the Ives Park Pool Fence Mural. And I know we had a public comment emailed in for that. Did everybody receive that email from Carrie today?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. And I can do a quick introduction of this item, just and then I'll go hand it off to Kathy Ottinger. So our Planning Commission, which also serves as our Park Commission, has been focusing park work and is very interested in working on elements of the Ives Park Master Plan. As you know, the community sculpture garden is one of those components that we'll be talking about later in the agenda. But the Planning Commission has formed a Ives Park subcommittee to really focus on some of the issues there. And we've had a couple meetings out on the site with Kathy and Kate Howe, who used to be on that committee. And then Everett Fernandez from the Planning Commission is also on that on the Ives Park subcommittee. One of the concepts they wanted to talk to you about today was something that we had talked about previously with Kathy about a potential mural on the Ives Pool fence. And so she's done some additional research and has a presentation for you today. And Kathy, thank you so much for all of your hard work on this, and I'll hand it off to you.
Okay, thank you very much for having me today. Also with us is Ricky Watts, who's a local muralist and artist, and also my neighbor, and Everett from the Planning Commission, and Ricardo from the pool, Ives Pool. Carrie, you covered many of the beginning features, but at this time I'd like to thank Dante Del Prete, the Supervisor of Public Works, who has helped us a lot to implement some of the changes, which were mostly maybe deferred maintenance, but he was able to find time and make many of the improvements that we were looking for, especially in the area of the sculpture garden. And I think as the asphalt removal and repaving project comes forward, we'll see more improvements back by the gate, where some of the gate and chain link fencing will be removed. So I'm really looking forward to the sculpture garden having a nice venue for visitors. I will go ahead and put up the presentation right now. If Carrie, if you can share that. How do we do that?
Sorry. If you look at the bottom of your screen, Kathy, there should be a blue button or a green button that says share screen.
All right.
And if you click on that, it'll give you a bunch of, whatever you have open on your computer, it will let you select which window. There you go.
Perfect. Document. So the first step that I took in trying to find out more about a possible project on Ives Pool fencing was to do a photo documentation of the area. So I started at the northeast end wall, which is the wall that I'm proposing a mural. And you can see that there are hedges there, but there's space behind the hedges, so it's easy to walk back in this area. And perhaps they could be trimmed a little bit more if a mural were to be painted here. At this time, I'd also like to point out on the far left side, a little sense that goes under the eave of the building under the rafter joist right there, which is shorter, but I think it should be, if there's a mural, it should be painted in part of this surface. The second main section goes from the corner to the stage. And then, and there are no real obstacles there. Again, the fence in this area is away from the wall a bit. And farther up the wall, Still at 10 feet, you have the wall to the gate. Right now, the gate's being used for a COVID entrance for the pool so that swimmers don't need to go through the main building. Going on to the next page, here's a shot of the entire wall, which is the main wall. Oh, stop. It's the height that is 10 feet, and I think it would be a really good spot. It's visible from most places, and could make a really nice mural presentation for the whole area. Again, there's a little shrub on the right that's coming through the fence. Picture 5 shows that. It is a sucker that has come up between a building or a shed, and it really should be removed anyway. So that's something that could be done in advance of a mural. This. Then section includes gate, and if you'll notice in figure 8, it shows that the slat detail changes a little bit. The chain link itself is shorter, narrower, and the slats themselves are narrower also. But I think it could still work as a mural with a lot less detail, but create an entire continuous view all the way up to Willow Street and draw people in from Willow Street. Although it has some complications and it's not necessary that this be part of a mural, but I think it could be a fun and interesting idea. You can see some slats need to be replaced, that could be easily done. Picture 9 shows, as best as I could get, a picture of the entire length of the mural, of a potential mural, just to give you a sense of how dramatic that would be. And moving on, Willow Street. There are problems with this area because the cars are parked right next to it many times during the day and weekends. And there's a lot of pool signage. Now, some of that signage has come down through vandalism, but the wall is pretty essential, I think, for the pool, for signage and usage. But I could see a mural extending in this area if you were really excited about doing something on this area, either as part of the other mural or as a separate mural. So 11, 12, and 13 show some of the signage that could be up there, and 14 shows that we need to do a little bit of maintenance along the lawn there. I was thinking if there were a mural, the lawn could be cut back a few inches and shredded bark, redwood bark, could be put in there to stop the weeds from coming through and creating more maintenance and not being as pleasing. At 15, it shows how the ivy grows through the fence. I think it could be cut down for a mural, and then it could grow back through the mural, and that would be fine. Also, I think that Ricardo Freitas, the pool manager, would want to be involved in any discussions because signage is important to the pool in this area. And moving on to the next page. I took the time to measure each section to give you an idea of how many square feet there are. And I divided the wall up into 3 main sections, the first being from the pool building at the left all the way to the gate at the right. That's panels 1 through 5 that show here as just over 1,000 square feet. And then I took panels 6 and 7, which are also 10 feet tall, and they add up to 733 square feet. And then I added the last bit of gate, which is just 110 square feet. So if you wanted to just do one section, you have the information to look at that one section. If you were doing the gate, you could do 2 murals or maybe even 3 murals on each of the facets of the wall, because there are some bends along the fence. It's not straight at all. We can come back to that and I can answer questions, but moving on to the next page, I thought I would be remiss if I didn't include a photograph of the east side of the pool. I think that mural wouldn't be called for on that shorter fence because there's landscaping that's coming in. It's not as visible as the other park because there isn't as much pedestrian traffic here. However, this view is from the parking lot at the Center for the Arts. So people who do enter the park in the children's area from this area would be able to see a fence. And of course, there is a nice blue wall there, but to me, nothing there looks unpleasant. In improving the park, I would prefer to spend money improving the parts that are less enjoyable. And another issue with the east side of the wall is that it's, if you're coming in from downtown, which is the next picture on the right here, the view is obscured by fences, parked cars, and play equipment. You don't really see the mural at all until you're, or very well, until you're past the children's playground, and then your view is very oblique to the wall. And then I know it's a terrible thing to present one idea and then throw another idea into the mix as competition, but at the parking lot across from the Center for the Arts, in an area where many park visitors do park, and I see swimmers parking there too as they walk over to the pool, there's a beautiful white wall there that really could use some improvement. And if the chain link issue is problematic, or if you have extra funds and they wanted another project, I think contacting the building owner, inspecting the area to see the condition of the wall. I haven't looked at it very closely to see if it's suitable or would need a lot of work or rehab before it was painted. But I think that would be a good project to look into. That would benefit, I think, the whole community, just as the other mural would. So that said, I wanted to ask Ricky if he had any comments, or if he had comments about the pool wall, and then we can open that up for questions. Hearing none, are there any other questions or comments?
Oh, I have a question. So I often pass a lovely children's mural that's around the Arts Center, but is kind of part of that environment. And I notice that's not included.
I wasn't looking at the walls of the Arts Center. I was primarily looking at the Ives Pool fence wall because it's in Ives Park. But I did also see that mural, and it is lovely. I think that mural is hid with brushes, and just this chain link mural would need to be spray painted because you can't do it with a brush. But Ricky Watts assures me that you can spray paint on this kind of a surface.
Thank you.
I have some questions for you. First of all, I applaud the level of detail that you've included in the study. First of all, I'm wondering, I forget if the Ives Park plan included replacement for any of the fencing at the pool.
I don't believe it does. I've looked at it. I haven't seen any comments about the pool fencing.
Okay. And then I'm curious about the durability and the lifespan of the slats that are in the fence. Are those slats replaceable?
They slide in and out, and they can be replaced. I would say on the 10-foot wall, most of the slats that I could see walking by without actually investigating each slat, they look like they're in very good condition. Some of the slats along Willow are perhaps older, narrower. I see some peeling paint, and they might need some work.
Mm-hmm. And then two more questions from me. This may be down the road as this project moves along, but I was just curious about relocating, integrating the important pool signage that's mostly along the Willow Street fence. If that's been considered, thought about yet?
I did think about it quite a bit, and it occurred to me that right now there is signage directing people to the pool entrance on the left side, the west side of the Willow Street wall. But generally, those signs would be, well, anywhere along the wall, but they could be more to the right of the wall. And with a spray painted fence, I don't think you're going to see a lot of detail. I would think that a simple wash of colors or patterns or textures, I was just kind of imagining, what if you had a night scene wrapping around the corner and it turned into dawn and a rainbow, and the blue of the rainbow splashed into a puddle, where the rest of the wall was that beautiful aqua blue, and then you could say Ives Pool right there on the wall. Maybe dolphins jumping with brightly colored goggles and flippers or something, something that's fun and playful. I'm not
Sea
sure
serpents?
would be. I'm visual. I can't keep those things from jumping into my mind. But it occurred to me that because it is so open, signage could be put up and taken down and removed, and it wouldn't really block the image, but the impression of we love this pool, we love this wall, we're a friendly place, and wouldn't you like to come in and swim with us? It could really enhance the branding of the pool.
Great. And then I think your consideration of the taqueria wall is really a good one. And I would certainly encourage the subcommittee to continue heading in that direction. So thanks, Kathy.
I'll comment on that one right now, Jeff. I've been in touch with the owners of that property. They not only own the taqueria, they own Boomers, the Hip Pizzazz, the entire area, including the parking lot. And they are hesitant to murals. And it is private property, which is outside of our purvey of paying for artwork on publicly owned property. So that one, I would say right now, unless we open up our scope, it is not something that we should even consider at this time, where Ives is a consideration. So that would just be a discussion, I think, for another day if we open that up. And I happen to know him personally too. I've tried to do murals on that building before on a personal level. So we'll see. It's not easy working with them.
I've experienced that.
Yeah. So can I ask you about the Willow Street again? You said some of those slats are not new. And would there be a consideration into making the whole slat area new? So, if you did a mural and you take out a few of the slats to replace them, that's part of the mural that's just going to be gone. So would that be something you guys are going to do? Update that entire part before a mural happens?
I would think that the mural, that the slat would have to be looked at closely before the work was begun. I believe Ricky mentioned something about preparing with an undercoat. Maybe he can add more to that at this time.
Sure, I would. I mean, the paint is in pretty good condition. I would probably just power wash the slats before painting. The great thing about spray paint is it's pretty durable, and it sticks to just about anything. So as long as the surface is clean and free of dirt, I think you should be okay with painting on top of it.
Yeah, the dirt that I saw on the Willow Street wall looked like it could come off with power washing.
Yeah.
I'm having trouble. I lost the visual, so I'm just trying to get back in. Just so you know.
When is I'd like to make a comment.
Go ahead, Warren.
Jen, actually, before we
Thank
get
you.
into,
So
before we get into comments, we should make sure that we have at least open for public comment before we bring it back to the pack to discuss. I know there aren't necessarily any public here, but just as a procedural rule.
Got it. Okay. Is there any more questions or comments from the public?
Okay, and this is where I will note that we did receive a written comment from Kate Howe in support of the project and the concept, which was forwarded to the PAC members earlier today. Thank you, Jen.
Okay, got it. Warren, go ahead.
Yeah, I walked around the park this morning and got a fresh eye on everything. I agree with you that the large wall, I guess you call it the west wall, behind the stage is the best option. It's the one you say is 16 by 32, called stage number 4. I think you should not think about painting on the slats. I would do something that is more like a actual picture with material that can be moved to another wall someday if that's the case. Could be exterior ply, framed, hung. It should not fill the whole space. I just think something like 10 by 16 maybe would be centered right behind the stage. And I'd very much like to see, since you're looking at a water theme, something about coral reefs, which are in great danger throughout the world. So I think it would appeal environmentally to people in our community, as well as welcome, because you have beautiful colors in coral reefs, fish, and all kinds of wonderful shapes and images to work with. So I would say, yes, I would like to hear of a potential cost and then move forward on that. But I think a lot of these walls really, really do not lend themselves to full appeal to the public. This one does.
Excuse me, I would love some help. I lost the visual. And I tried to relaunch it, and every time I click launch, it says allow, and then it doesn't go anywhere.
It's also attached to the packet. Margie, you could open
Well,
it.
I was clicking on what I got for the email, which was said to launch.
You can't see the shared screen, Margie?
No, I can't see a screen. I can hear, but I can't see. I just lost it.
On the upper right-hand corner, you might have a couple of adjustments there where you can go back to the shared screen view.
I don't, let's see. I don't see that. Zoom.
While you're looking
Participants,
for
share
that,
screen, try that.
while you're looking for that,
Host
I would like
disabled.
to also say I like Warren's idea of not painting on the slats and installing some sort of plywood area behind the stage, only because painting on the slats aren't going to last forever, but a mural on some wood, spray paint or not, it could really last quite a bit longer and then just be a static image. And I love it there. I love this little location. I also went through and looked at Ives today, and I think that it could really be a wonderful option to have a mural there, and in all of the spaces, but especially behind the stage there. And a wood piece wouldn't add too much to the cost, and it could be easily attached to the fence. I don't think that it would be something that would be in danger of falling over, especially if we went with a really thin plywood.
Can I ask a couple questions?
Yes, please, Lars, go ahead.
So I sort of want to back up in looking at the Ives master plan that Carrie had given us at one point. It's dated 2013. The stage that we're talking about right here is meant to be removed. The fencing on Willow Street is recommended to be moved closer to the pool to allow more pedestrian friendly space there. So I'm curious is that stuff going to happen, even if it happens 20 years from now? Or is this kind of, the subcommittees come to a point where, oh, we've got so many other things we need to do in the park. This fencing is staying and it's never going to change, and therefore we want to beautify it. So it's kind of, it's a two-part question to me. One is how much of the master plan is really pertinent, and the other is kind of more specifically, like, what are the security concerns of the pool that, like, do we need a fence this high? Do we need a fence exactly at this location? Because also in the master plan, it talks about more transparency into the pool from Willow Street, and I think from one other, and also from where the stage is now. So I don't know if Kathy or Ricardo, you guys could speak to that. I think that's, I need to know that before we talk about any mural in any specific spot.
I can say that the Planning Commission would focus any funds we had on the restoration of the creek at this point, and or finishing, well, and first, I guess, finishing the asphalt replacement project to complete that. And I think that's, from our meetings and discussions, I think that's where our priorities lie right now. It doesn't mean that, there is a lot of money out there in the world. It doesn't mean that a grant couldn't be gotten to make those changes at the pool.
Yeah, and Kathy, I'd agree with you. The focus from the commission and the higher priorities. It doesn't mean that these other components might not happen, but they're probably further down the road.
Okay, so, and in terms of the stage, there's 2 stages in the park, right? There's this one, and there's one across the way in the grove, let's say. Is this stage even used ever for performance, or?
I asked that question, and I heard a rumor that the sea serpents had used it for some things, and I guess what they do is, if there's a meet or they're practicing, that they serve their snacks out in the park on the stage, rather than, I guess, pay the fee to be in the pool. I mean, it's just what I heard. And that's the only thing that I know about. I did also think that when I was thinking of spray painting, that no matter what else was on the wall, putting a dramatic theater curtain here with a window to the horizon, a view of countryside, would make a really cute backdrop for skits and other performances or a musician might want to sit there and play. It just seemed like it would be an enhancement, at least, to the wall as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, for the stage, I believe Dante, who has the institutional memory among us, noted that it was for the Shakespeare in the Park at one point, but they haven't been doing it there in any recent years. So.
Yeah, the other stage is much bigger and has, backstage and, so, just a much more generous area around it. But according to the master plan, there's a new stage to be built looking towards the fire station. That's new for a 3rd stage, in a sense, compared to these other 2.
Beyond my lifetime, I think.
I have more comments, but Everett's raising his hand.
I have some comments too and questions.
Everett, you want to go?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity and the time you guys have given us. I was going to tell you how much work and good work that Kathy has done, but I think her presentation speaks for itself as far as the detail and everything that she's done. So appreciate all of that. As far as the master plan, I've heard about this master plan for, 20 years or so from the previous master plan and probably the next master plan. So I think that moving forward on some of these ideas, I think we can be assured that they'll stay there for quite a while. I don't see any big movements other than, as Kathy mentioned, moving on, hopefully creek restoration, that kind of strategy along the way. But this is kind of what we were looking with the subcommittee, was to look at low-hanging fruit, items that can be done relatively inexpensive or easy to do without having to involve 5 agencies to do something, was what we were looking at. I wanted just to also echo a comment that Carrie had said, to make sure we incorporate sea serpents somewhere in here, since that's the mascot for Annalee, or that hopefully stays as Annalee. Also, regardless of your decision as far as the art, whether you do a mural on the slats or the wall, I think that some kind of a hung piece there, as you mentioned, framed, could work fine. I still think that that the slat wall could still lend itself to some kind of a background color, whether it's some kind of color, changing color, something like that, and then the mural could be hung on there. But I still like the idea of having some kind of a scenery in the background anyway. And then if things happen, the slats could be changed and so forth. But anyway, those are my comments on it. So thank you for allowing us to come in and Kathy come in and do the presentation.
Yeah, I was going to ask
Okay.
if Ricky or anybody for that matter can find any examples of a similar type of fence construction that has mural art on it. That might be a little more persuasive if we can see some examples. Second, looking into the future, I think the fence itself maybe could be looked into further in terms of retrofitting it, replacing parts of it to make it more durable over the long term, and something that would accept a mural better if the slats don't really support that kind of art. Or maybe even finding some sponsors, might even be some fencing companies and other sponsors where money could come in to help support the fence if the other master plan expenditures are not going to get to the fence.
I do have a small screenshot that I saw online when I was first looking into this, and I could share it with you to just give you an idea of what it looks like. Is that okay?
That would be great if you could share that.
Okay, so I guess I go back to the screen sharing, a new share. It's open, but I'm not seeing it here.
You have to select it again.
And it's not showing up as an option.
Why don't you unshare this one and then try sharing a new one?
Okay, go back to my share and stop sharing. Here we go. So here's a close-up detail that shows the slats in a fence. That's very similar to ours.
Isn't that a wood fence behind a
No, it's
chain link fence?
It is.
Oh, it is.
It's not slats.
Oh, it is. Oh, I'm sorry. Then no, I haven't found anything similar. But there is a company that will take your digital art and print it on the wood slats at their factory and ship them to you. So you just drop them in. That's another way to go.
So I have some comments and questions. First of all, I want to say too, I'm just impressed by how what detail you used, Kathy, in looking at this project, and thank you. I think that this area is a very prominent area for the city. It can be seen from the street. It can be seen people using the park, using the pool, using the children's playground and so on. And it's a large area. So I think it's great to be working towards putting art on it. And I hope that we think carefully about what images we use because it will be something that everyone will be living with. And I think that there's an opportunity to, as you said, to continue the sense of a community arts area so that we have the art center there and the community sculpture garden will be there. So we can, I think it's wonderful to continue that. I'd like to, my thought is to bring in the children, school children, to also participate and have part of the area, their artwork. I know several schools have very strong art programs. The Parkside School, which is very nearby that, has a very, very strong art program. And also to bring in the cultural richness of Sebastopol and the different cultural groups that are not as represented visually in general. So I think that would be, I'd love to see that more as a community, as well as, I know, and you talked about supporting artists coming up and so on. I think that's excellent. And there's some artists, sculpture artists that I think of both coming up and very skilled ones that could also be part of this. So I think that's wonderful. And definitely to include the sea serpents and swimmers. Just, you know, this is a place where we swim. Images of people swimming. You know, corals are nice and dolphins are nice, but what we actually do have there are a pool with people swimming of all different types and different activities in the swimming. And I also was looking at the hedges and thinking about maybe at some point being able to shape them rather than just have them be rectangles, to shape them to reflect something that is the artwork on the pool, on the fence, if we put artwork on the fence. And similarly, if we ever redo the fences to have, you know, there are fences that the top has more of a wave-like pattern rather than just straight. And I also would like, we talked about this before, to clarify the role at some point of the Public Arts Committee with the subcommittee on the park in terms of, you know, here we're discussing, advising, inputting, and assist, if possible, what kind of assistance and what kind of approval of artwork for the city. What's the role of the PAC? So I think we need to, again, we still need to work on that and clarify it. And I'm also glad to see Ives Pool represented here, Ricardo. So that's great to have your input too. Thank you.
I'd like to comment on that too, what I think of as process. I feel like I'm implementing an idea that our committee had, and my hope would be to hand it off to your committee to either move on it or not move on it. I don't think the Planning Commission is equipped with your expertise and vision to actually go through the process of, you know, requesting bids and artwork from local artists, or to look into that next process. That's something I would really be just handing the project over to you at this point, if you choose to accept it. And I think if there were things that needed to be done in the park in advance on the fence, that perhaps that becomes the city's responsibility or Public Works responsibility. And Carrie, you might know more about that.
I just did a quick search and I found some slat wall options. And in this case, if it's okay, I could share the screen really fast. But, oh, I am disabled for sure.
I just made you a co-host so you can do that.
Thanks. Okay, so what this is, and the way that something like this would work would be we would have a designer do graphic design work. These folks make the slats, but we could still consider this artwork based on having the designer design, you know, the serpents and Ives Pool and everything. But this way, these are plastic slats that these folks would put in. And So you can see here the detail, and then the actual fence part's not messed up. You can have different options like this. This is how you do a slat wall mural, something like this, right? So that's the only thing I could find just on a quick search. But you can see here, the fence itself isn't touched, but the slats actually have the artwork on it. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there. That could still be an option where we do a call for designers.
Exactly.
And you could get a really detailed, something really fun, and it would still, you know, incorporate both parts. We have a ton of great graphic designers here in Sonoma County that would probably be interested in something like that too.
My thinking there is that spray painting would just reuse the existing slats and there'd be less to purchase. That was where I was coming from.
I get that, but you know, I've worked a lot with spray paint, and spray painting over the metal plus the slats, especially older slats, you're going to have a lot of peeling. We're talking about spray paint that's got high VOC levels. This is not a super eco-friendly situation. With peeling paint that's going to be chipping off, or even with the kids sitting there on the fence chipping the paint off of the fence, that would just be a little bit on the metal. It's just going to come off. Yeah, go ahead. Do you have something?
Can I speak?
Yeah, please.
These slats were painted like 5 or 6 years ago when we painted the pool. They painted the slats. They was a different color. They were like, I think were varnish color.
And you painted the slats and the metal, or just the slats?
They painted all the stuff.
Just the whole thing sprayed over?
All over. Yeah, and the guy painted the slats, yeah.
And there's no peeling?
No peeling, yeah.
Okay, that's great to know. Great, thank you. Is there anybody else that has anything, any questions?
I just have one more comment. This isn't necessarily related to the fence mural art we're discussing, but you know, in looking at the photographs that you shared with us, Kathy, especially the other fencing on the east side of the park, my hope would be that the Planning Commission, subcommittee, and/or City Council is seriously looking at replacing or fixing some of that fencing. It's definitely a first impression for people visiting the park. A lot of it's bent up, not necessarily uniform. And I just think in terms of the overall feeling that people get when they approach the park, that would be a huge improvement.
Talking about the general fencing, various gates. Yeah, we agree. Fencing at the gate will change. Some of it comes out completely and some of it gets lowered. And if the creek restoration occurs, who knows when, a lot of the fencing will come down, and only the very steep areas, if the master plan is followed, would have fencing in them. So we'll see a lot less fencing in the future. And of course, we'd like it to be nicer fencing as well too. Maybe we can find money for that.
All right, and Jeff, just so you know, the Planning Commission has had several, over the years, the last probably 5 years or so, several conversations about that. So that is a work in progress. Little bits will come down with the, that are in between pathway and pathways as part of the pathway project, but yes, the majority of it along the creek would come down at the time the creek is naturalized.
So I just want to say, I kind of thought of, it seemed to be like 6 elements. This is not a simple project. Elements of organization that somehow would have to be addressed. One was what we've been talking about a lot, is the physical plan as to, you know, how it would be painted and what happens to the area and what the plans are and so on. The other would be the design. The other is the artist contributors and selection and work with that, funding, the actual execution of the design, and maintenance. So those are 6 different things that we look at, and it's each one is kind of some more so than others are have much to them for to be worked out.
Okay, so Carrie, what do we do today? Do we have, are we here to vote on if we want to move forward with this? Or do we go around with another round of questions and comments, or do we take this to a second level of us?
Sure, thanks, Chair Vert. So there's two different ways that the PAC could handle this. Certainly the PAC could take on the project as a smaller art project, not sort of the huge call that, but a sort of like the Black Lives Matter, where it's a project. Although in this case, it sounds like the Ives Park subcommittee wouldn't be leading it. They would be asking the PAC to lead a call for artists and selection and curation. And then just like your other calls, the implementation part of it, contracting with an artist would go through approval of the artist by of your recommendation by the council, and the budget would be approved by council, and then staff would, Dante and I would work for the implementation part of it. The other piece of it is if the PAC doesn't want to take it on, but anytime there's art proposed on public property, we do want to bring it to the PAC as the public art curators for the city. And so, you know, that would be the first decision point in the decision tree for the PAC, I think, is this the project you'd like to take on as your, you know, along with the sculpture garden, and then that those two components for Ives Park would be sort of a big art lift to beautify the park and create art opportunities, or is it something that you're, you know, at this point in time, you're happy with the concept but not able to take on?
Okay, so should we swing around the group really quick and get an opinion on one of the two ideas that Carrie just mentioned? And we could just throw that out there, or anybody want to start? Anybody want to take this project on and make this one of our next projects?
Well, it sounded to me like what Kathy said is they wouldn't take it on. So it's either we take it on or it goes away, it sounds like.
Yeah, Kathy, can you speak to that? Is that the way it's going to go?
Yes, I don't think I have the expertise to take on the project. So I would be hoping that someone on your committee would be interested in carrying it forward, or adding it to your long-term list of, if, you know, what we might do another day as well.
Right.
And Kathy, to clarify that, would you or the Ives Park subcommittee be willing to, so our PAC group has several subcommittees as well, like we have a subcommittee on the sculpture garden, doing sort of the heavy lifting on that and coming back to this group. If the PAC were able to form a subcommittee for the fence project, would you be willing to work with that, you know, in tandem with them to help move the project along?
Yes, I would help with that.
Okay. So I understand not having the art capacity, art expertise, because I don't either. So I depend on this group for that.
I would like to make a comment. I suggest that we move forward with our two sculpture projects that are later on this agenda and make this our third priority, and get a subcommittee to, in the meantime, take on looking at the site, looking at the fences, and thinking about slats versus not slats, hanging something, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that would be my way of approaching it.
Anybody else?
I'd agree with that.
Great, Margie?
I would agree with that. I was wondering who would want to be on that subcommittee. And I also have one comment to Carrie's description. I feel strongly that it should be more than one artist whose work is shown there. And I think having one artist is for that amount of space is kind of very dangerous because, you know, everyone's got their own opinion about art. So at least if there's some variation, there's more choice and more connection by the community. And I'd like to emphasize again, to connect the community by having the community represented also.
And
So-
Jeff? Sorry, Margie, I didn't mean to
It's
cut
okay.
you off. If
No,
you still
that's
have
it.
something, go ahead.
No,
Okay,
that's it.
go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I think that our committee should go ahead and support it. And I appreciate Kathy mentioned a lot of flexibility in terms of the timeline. So I think that gives our committee that flexibility as well.
Okay, I'm gonna agree with the rest of the pack and say, yeah, let's put it on our list of to-dos and to look forward to. And I don't know if anybody's interested in joining a subcommittee today, but if we can get Kathy's information and as we move forward, because we only have a half hour left of this meeting and we do have a few things coming up. But if we could put a subcommittee together and then get in touch with Kathy and the rest of the Ives group here in the future, I think that would be a really positive step for us moving forward.
Thank you. I appreciate your time and effort to look at this today.
Oh, thank you so much.
I was just going to say, I think it may be worth another meeting where the whole group talks about this and what's the actual scope we want to take on before we do a subcommittee.
I would love that. I would love to see that too.
Yeah, I agree with you, Lars.
Thank you.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, go ahead, Everett.
Yeah, and if you do a subcommittee, I know how it is with groups, you know, busy now, we have to be added on the subcommittee, is to, if you can, if it's allowed, is to involve perhaps some community members in the subcommittee, because that's something they can focus on and move it along, and just have maybe a representative from your group to kind of just be there to kind of for guidance, and that way it doesn't get stalled like so many other projects that happen.
Absolutely. Something we've been talking about a lot lately, adding public subcommittee members to our group. So right on.
Right. And then Ricardo, are you able to join that subcommittee as well? Obviously, it's as the operator of the facility, we want to make sure you're involved with it if you can.
Yeah, if I can, I do it. Especially on the fall.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much then. It's been a pleasure to meet with you today.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so if we should move forward, then on the regular agenda item, we have future art concepts. And I know I would, if everyone has something, maybe we could just throw it out there and then move forward since we are running low here on time.
Can we figure out for time so that we don't, I'd like to make sure the other
That's what
item,
I'm doing. Yep.
actually, yeah, the other items.
And
get in.
you can, as a committee, decide to rearrange the agenda if
All
you
right.
want.
Let's just go straight to the sculpture garden update then, because I know that's what Margie's talking about. Margie, go ahead. Let's do the sculpture garden. Let's discuss it.
Okay, so on the date that we had scheduled, I went to the sculpture garden and Tito was there from the city. And Warren, who may want to comment, had the different date, so he was not there. And we waited for him, but since he didn't show up, we went around and actually marked out 8 spots. And Tito dug a hole, put some spray paint on it, cleared the weeds from around it, and also marked on the asphalt the different 1 to 8. So we know there's 8. They are, you know, if people say, well, I really think it should be this and over here and so on, let's hear that. So we can, it's not set in stone at this, or cement at this point, but the next step will be the pouring as far as I know. So that's my report.
Sure, and I can add on to that. Thank you, Margie. So Public Works did get the utility markers folks, people who mark power lines, you know, gas lines, that kind of stuff, and they have cleared the area. They've confirmed that there are not any utilities And so, yes, Nathan Sutton, who's the Assistant Public Works Superintendent, was not able to attend on the 20th, so he sent Tito. He would like to go out and just reconfirm before they start excavations. And he sent me a couple of, he noted that Warren wasn't able to be there. So he did send me 3 times next week. And so I said, well, maybe I can try to catch you, Warren and Margie, today at the meeting so that everyone's on the same page in terms of the dates. And actually, so if we can schedule that now, I can actually just put it in the chat, the dates that he's looking at. There's Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
Okay, I'm going to just go get my calendar.
Okay, great.
I cannot do it on a Thursday.
You cannot do it Thursday?
No.
Okay, so we'll
I could-
check with Margie on the Tuesday and Wednesday times when she's back. But otherwise, they are working to schedule the work. They've had a lot of emergency water and sewer work that they've had to do recently, but they are certainly, they're looking to get it on their calendar.
And this is just for the subcommittee, right? Not for everybody?
This is for the subcommittee, although if anyone wants to join, they can. You know, masks, 6 feet apart, all that kind of stuff. I believe Jeff actually had expressed an interest in wanting to, you know, photo document the timeline of it, if I recall, of the process of the installation. So you're welcome to join, Jeff, if you want. There's not a quorum issue. This is a sort of a, at this point, it's an already approved project by the council.
And what are the
So Tuesday or
times?
Wednesday?
What are the times?
So Tuesday between 2 and 5, and Wednesday between 8 and 4:30.
Tuesday between 2 and 5. Go for Wednesday early.
Okay, Tuesday's easier for me. Yeah, I guess, yeah, that would be my first choice. Can you come in the afternoon, Warren?
If I'm not asleep.
How about Tuesday? We try Tuesday at 2. That's fairly early. That's the earliest that Public Works
We're
can
saying
do.
Tuesday at 2.
Right, and I can meet that at that time too. That's
Will you
available on
confirm
my
this?
calendar.
Please confirm this by email when you talk to them.
Yes, I will send out an email to you all.
May 11, we're talking about May 11, correct?
Yes, May 11th, next Tuesday, 2 p.m. Sculpture
Okay.
Garden. All right, thank you all.
Thank you.
So Margie, I
Yes,
walked
sir.
around this morning and found most of your pads. Are
Yes,
you there?
I was out there this morning as well, and
You
the
mean most
markings
of
are
the-
still,
The marks,
still there.
yeah.
So do we have to talk about tree roots at any time?
We tried to be more than 10 feet away from any tree, but
Great.
if there's a concern, please, we need to know.
No,
Yes,
there's a city arborist.
Right.
right.
I'm not an arborist. That's somebody you need a special.
Yeah, I will coordinate that. Don't worry about that.
That's the only question.
Great.
Okay, what else? It's really exciting. I would like to come on Tuesday just to watch it all happen. It's so exciting. But is there anything else? Any other updates, or should we?
The other update that I have is from Michael McGinnis. He is actually just as a you know, I tried to ask for the various projects. He is actually going to be laser cut, having the metal laser cut instead of water cut, and it looks like he's getting his metal ordered for that today or tomorrow. So that process is moving along. I've asked him, and I'll bring at the next meeting. So the overall schedule update for him, and then the other item is the Nedcon update, which was fully approved by council, and I want to thank Margie for attending. I think it's always super helpful to have a PAC member at the meeting, and council was extremely supportive and pleased with it, the fact that it was going almost back to where the original location was. Additionally, there was some discussion and certainly interest from council on the idea of marking the entries to town with sculpture. And Margie, I don't know if you want to add anything from what you heard on that. We did receive a follow-up email from one of the council members.
Yeah, Sarah
expressing
asked about,
continued interest in
she
that.
referred to some previous discussion. I asked her if she could send a link or some way to find that, but I did not hear back from her. And I want to say again that unfortunately Ned was not able to be at that meeting, so it's a good thing we were. Do you know, is he well now?
Yeah, he had a vaccine reaction,
Yeah.
and actually I was out for 2 days last week with a vaccine reaction, so I absolutely understand the situation. He was actually there for the first part of the meeting and just could not wait until the item. He was not feeling well, so. But I've talked to him. The next steps is I just need to revise the contract amendment to be the new scope instead of the older project, and update the schedule, and so that'll be done by the next meeting, and we'll have him sort of fully under contract and working on the project this month.
So does he have any ETA for it?
You know, I know he had some. He thinks it can be pretty quick. I did talk to our building department as well. In terms of permitting, and one of the questions council had was, since it's in a floodplain, if the lower components of it would be an issue, and the building official said, no, there's no floodplain regulatory issues to be concerned about. It can go in as designed. In terms of the structural footings, we did discuss that a little bit. So obviously Ned will need to have the foundations engineered to know how deep the helical piers that he's proposing would need to go, and so that will take a little. You know, obviously the engineer will need to look at the site and move that forward. So I'll have a schedule update at our next meeting.
In terms of the floodplain, I hear you that there's no ordinance, but isn't that a concern in that area? I went by it again and was talking to some other people, and they were saying, well, maybe it would be better to have it on a platform now rather than have it get flooded and have to be fixed and then say, yeah, I guess it should be on a platform.
So so we do have, just to be clear, we do have a floodplain ordinance. The sculpture as proposed does not conflict with the ordinance.
Yeah, I hear that.
Yes, there is a potential that some of the lower components could get damaged. But I think, you know, when we met on site, and Jen and Margie, I don't know if you recall, Ned talked about the potential to raise it up if needed, but I think his preference was really to have it, you know, something that people could interact with and have it go from just look like it's coming out of the ground. So I don't know if we would, and obviously if you're building a big platform, that's going to add expense to the time and expense to the project as well.
So
I think from all of Ned's experience, he always works with water, he works with wind. I don't think from everything he's said and what I've seen of his work, if it floods, it'll recede and it'll still be there. And if anything, it might have to get sprayed off a little bit, but it's a very, very durable material.
Right, and he did, I believe it's the same material that he's proposing for the Hotel Sebastopol sculpture that was reviewed by the PAC. And I do recall asking him questions about the material in terms of the maintenance. Yeah. And so they are pieces that can be replaced if they were to get damaged, but but yeah, in terms of maintainability, that was actually one of the pluses to the material he's choosing.
Yeah, I understand it's very robust material and so on. And that he wanted to come out of the land. I think that's beautiful and so on. I'm just concerned because it's a low-lying area. We have seen incredible flooding downtown. And I just, you know, if it gets flooded and needs repair, then then we'll say, oh, well, maybe we do need a platform. And that was my thought, was maybe we should have one prophylactically, but it doesn't sound like we're going to.
It sounds to me like it's made for water, though. You know, it's meant for outdoors. I think it'll be okay.
Okay, I hope so.
I'm feeling good about it.
Good, thank you.
I don't want anything to hold this up at this point either. So if I could shift it and go back, we have a few minutes. We skipped future art concepts. I want to make sure that nobody had one prepared that they wanted to discuss. Okay, let's just skip it then and we'll bring that. Oh, go ahead.
Hi, are you gonna have public comments?
I don't know. Could we, Carrie? Is that okay? Or what do we?
So we're sort of past the public comment stage.
No, I mean for future.
Not for
Good
an
item.
agenda item, though. Go ahead.
Carrie?
So yeah, I think it's fine to go ahead and call on
Okay.
Everett for public comment. Sorry.
Sure,
Thank
go
you.
ahead.
I just wanted to, at some point I wanted to come to the pack to talk about this, but I saw it on your agenda since I was already here. I figured I'd bring it up. I've been working for a few years on a concept of wanting to have a sort of a tribute to the farm workers of Sonoma County. And I've had kind of an informal committee at one point, and then this was before some of the fires and the floods and the COVID all came along, and I kind of wanted to reconnect again. I've spoken to organizations such as the Grape Growers Association, and as far as funding to do something, I had a couple of meetings with the owners of the Sebastopol Hotel that's coming in online about the concept of incorporating something with the farm worker, either part of their lobby area or artwork. They're very open to it, but I wanted just to kind of throw that out there, not really obviously intended for discussion today, but maybe for a future item about trying to do something, whether it's a statue, mural, some kind of art depicting and showing about the contributions that the farm worker has done in this area. This is what we attribute to the beautiful area that we have, and the vineyards and wineries and the wealth and so forth. I think it's appropriate. And Sebastopol, I think, would be an appropriate place to have it representing the entire county. So I think it's an opportunity that we have, and I wanted just to throw that out there kind of just as a consideration.
I think that's great. I think it's very important that there be recognition and appreciation. And I think that's a wonderful idea. I don't know whether, what came up to me was at some point in one of the projects that we do fund, whether that could be a theme. Just to consider that.
Yeah, one of the things we talked, even the hotel people were open to is, I don't know if you've seen some of the drawings, concepts of what the hotel is going to look like. It's going to be a very open kind of architecture, but perhaps in their kind of lobby area is going to be kind of a public, open to public. And they were even considering the idea of calling something like Campesino area, or, basically the term for farm worker, kind of dedicating it to them, either a plaza, Campesino Plaza, or something like that, with different areas of artwork and so forth. So there's a lot of ideas that could be worked along there. But if you can kind of just put it on your list of things, and if anyone is interested, if you're interested in pursuing farther, I'd be glad to be on a subcommittee to push it forward. If you think that's appropriate, or if not, I could do it kind of in a private setting instead and do it on my own. But I just wanted to see if it might be something you guys would be interested in.
From what I understand, the Hotel Sebastopol is curating their own art. They're not, they've brought some ideas of what they've wanted to do to us. But I don't know if we could put him in contact with Cersei and that team there, and then that could be its own situation, because that's not necessarily, that would be almost like you would create the art and then just bring it by us to say, what do you guys think?
Yeah, because
that's private property, so that's not what we do.
That's what I've been kind of trying to decide, whether this is something that should be from a private standpoint, or if the community, the city wants to get behind it to do more of a recognition, which I think would be more community based in the way it should be. But those are just the different options I was looking at.
I don't think it has to be one or the other necessarily.
Right. Yeah. Well, I love it. It's something we definitely need to keep on the table. And I would love to hear more from you on that. And I don't know if it's possible, if it's okay, but maybe we can give Cersei your information and have that team reach out.
Yeah, and you can get my information Very
Right. What I can do, Everett, is I can forward your information to Cersei and the project team up there and to put
Okay.
you in contact. Yep.
That's
Yeah,
at least a start. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you guys want to, at some future point, make it an agenda item that we can kind of discuss and come up with some ideas and, kind of just see what we come up with, let me know and be glad to attend and let you know what I've done to this point and kind of just, I'd like to get your input.
Awesome.
Great.
Awesome. Okay, we got 15
Thank
minutes.
you.
Potential sculpture sites for future calls. There is no written report. I know that. Is there anybody else who has potential sculpture sites for anything? Let's say the pads on the 12 or anything?
Well, I still feel really strongly about looking at Spooner Park. So if there's anybody, Carrie, that want to let me know a contact with the city that maybe I should speak with. I just think it's a prime piece of city land. The city land that's spacious is not there's not very much of it. And I just feel like some modifications could be made to that piece of land. It's not really a park in the first place, but anyway, that would be, which would make space for a very prominent and substantial piece of art where so many people enter Sebastopol and the West County for that matter. So, and I'm happy to do some of the work towards speaking to whoever to see if it's a possibility.
I would like to understand if Spooner, every time we talk about this, Spooner comes off the table like it's not an option. So is this an actual option or not? Carrie, is that possible?
So yes, in the council discussions actually related to the Nedcon art piece, the Spooner Park was raised as a potential option, and Jeff, Mary Glass would maybe be a good person to talk to, just because she has a background. Her husband was one of on the council at the time when the Solar Dragon went in, and so just in terms of the community context, she would have be a good person to talk to about that. And obviously she has an interest in art since she serves with the Sebastopol Center for the Arts. I think there's two things with that. One is there's a lot of things going on in that park, as this committee has talked about before. Is there space for it? And to me, that's a PAC decision or recommendation. And I think in the past, because of the Solar Dragon and the signs and everything else there, it may have been considered sort of full, but I think it was opened up as a site that could be considered by a city council if they were discussing Nedcons. And Mary Glass said, yeah, she personally didn't have any problem with it, as a art site.
So may I mention a little history? Prior to the Solar Dragon, there was art. It was a main place that the Sculpture Jam placed art. And we were talked to by the designer of the solar panels that it would take up all the park, which it has done. And I can't remember, Mrs. Una Glass's husband not only was a council member, he designed the Solar Dragon, and a former mayor wrapped wire around each pole and planted passion flowers from different places in the world. Some are dead. That was the art that was to be included in the park. And there was a former council member who wanted to put a real dragon threaded through those poles. And there was a time when they had discretionary funds to do something like that at the council level. And I met with her and we walked down to where the pizza parlor is and looked back at the site. And it's a nightmare of signs. There are Rotary signs, there are city signs, there are stop signs, Caltrans signs. There's all of those dragon. And so it is a very busy place. And one of the things Nedcon always looked at in citing the sculpture is what those power lines conflict with what I wanted to do. And one cannot just put a piece of wonderful art in anywhere just because it's a good site. Or I shouldn't even say a good site, just because it's a site where cars go by. Because it almost would ruin a good piece of art to put it in that location. I know Jeff really wants this and he comes up every meeting with this, but I think one should look at the other side. I think the little spaces the city owns on the side of entry into the brew pub should be considered as coming in from the south side of town. That is an couple of open spaces, could easily have a sculpture of farm workers. We could have a theme and a place and move forward with something there. So any questions?
It seems to me that that Spooner Park, the two issues, one is the signage and the other is the solar installation and the dragon that was put there.
And that adds up to crowding.
Well, and it's crowding if you consider those things immutable.
They are immutable. The solar is there for the city well that's there.
I have to say that in coming into the city, that's, in my opinion, that's not a very pleasant visual welcoming.
So
And
that's correct.
Huh?
That's correct. It's not.
Disagree about the solar panels, but the rest of it, I could definitely see signage being consolidated or even moved to another location. I think the solar panels themselves are actually quite a nice installation and speaks a lot of the intention and the values of this community. But if you cleared everything else out, you'd see those better, and maybe there'd be a spot for a piece of artwork also.
But how are you going to clear those out?
Well, you go out there with a shovel and, crowbar. I don't know. You go dig it out, take them out of there.
I mean, they can be consolidated. They can be made smaller. They can be moved so that it can coexist in some way with artwork. I've always felt that was an ideal place for entrance artwork, and when I first brought it up, no, it couldn't be done. But I'd love to open that up as a consideration. And if not that, then I think Carrie was going to check on the trailhead. And the trailhead is on the right-hand side as you enter town. The Hop Monk is on the left. It isn't really as much of a greeting spot to me. Carrie, do you have any comment on the county?
Yes, I did send a request, the question off to them. I have not received a response yet. So I will follow up with that. It's been a few weeks, so that email may have gotten lost along the way.
Well, from what I'm hearing then, Spooner Park should be back on the table with 1 no and 4 saying, let's take another look at it. With the trailhead not even being city-owned land, I say we should all maybe do a little homework, walk out there, put it back into our heads. Let's put it on the agenda for next week or next month and just see what possibilities there really could be. And this can't just keep coming up every week and we just brush it off. Is it possible or not? Let's figure this out and then we either move on it or not. That's what I would like to suggest.
And I appreciate all that. And I will contact Una Glass at Carrie's suggestion and find out what other information to share.
That would be great.
And what is there some suggestion about thinking about the signage, reorganization of the
Let's
signage?
all think about that. That's our homework.
Yeah, okay, good.
And not, as I've commented at past meetings, not just there either. If PAC can have any kind of input into signage, public signage in general in the city, I think is a worthy discussion to have or a recommendation to make to the city council and or design review planning commission.
Yeah, and that actually, there's two components with city signage. One is that there was a wayfinding program and design that was done a few years back. The first phase of that has been implemented, which is the, like right by the sculpture garden, there's an Ives Park kind of monument sign announcing the park, Ives Park and Pool. There are wayfinding signs, sort of directional signs for pedestrians that were installed. One is at the Living Peace Wall across from the plaza, and there's a few others around town. There are two other phases to that. One, they're mainly for city buildings or for wayfinding to city parking lots and other city amenities. I don't believe it covered monument signs coming into the city, although I can check on that because I think that would be, that may be something that is, if those are being combined. The second part of it is the welcome signs, and I know this did come up in relationship to the Nedcon sculpture, since there's two signs there.
Yeah.
I do know that there's interest from at least one planning commissioner, Everett, actually has raised that as a question. Is the city currently doesn't even have a policy in terms of what churches or philanthropic organizations, as we have at Spooner Park, those signs, who goes on those or not. So that's something he's been working on a little bit to sort of think about that. And I don't know, Lars, but I can ask this afternoon if there's perhaps interest in the DRB as well, since it's a design issue, obviously, to get a subcommittee together amongst those groups to figure out, and possibly a council member to work on that and sort of just assess what the city wants to do in terms of the welcome signs. But I can look through the wayfinding documents, and we'll send to this group if there are entry signs as part of that package. I don't know if they would replace necessarily the philanthropic signs at Spooner Park, but that same level of design could be done with those two existing signs as well.
I also, can you update us on the future of the utilities poles along Petaluma Avenue?
We have utility poles along Petaluma Avenue.
Yes, thank you for that. Are there any plans to go underground like on Main?
Not in the immediate future. That's an extremely expensive proposition, so it's very difficult to do, as you've probably heard with conversations directed towards PG&E in terms of, why don't we have more undergrounding? The city does require undergrounding from the pole location of the street to new structures when they're constructed. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're, going to be undergrounded at the street. There are some projects that have done that. Of course, Petaluma Avenue is pretty built up. So in terms of significant redevelopment that would trigger that, I don't anticipate any of that at this time. And the city does get a certain amount of fees funding each year from PG&E for undergrounding. But the amount we get as that share compared to what it costs to underground even one pole it takes several years to accumulate enough in that account to do anything significant like what was done on Main Street, which is the last, accumulation that was for work that was done.
Okay.
Well, I suggest we bring potential sculpture sites back up again in the next meeting. And then we move ahead, since we're pretty much done, to the planning report, and see if Carrie has anything, if that's okay with everybody. Great. Go ahead, Carrie.
Sure. And I think I already updated on the Nedcon sculpture. We do have $5,000 requested for this next fiscal year for sculpture for your next call. And I did have them put in a placeholder of 40,000, which can always be adjusted next fiscal year. But just to understand that would be the entire project kind of budget would be somewhere in that range. And I think the only other update I have is the council did start the adoption process for development impact fees last night. That does include an increase in the park fees and traffic fees. Some other fees were adjusted up and down. The public art fee was raised at the meeting, but that is not part of the update because it's a percentage of construction. If construction costs go up, then the fee it doesn't need to be indexed and refreshed over time because it just follows the construction cost for a project as a percentage of construction. So that was not included in that report if anyone asks about it, but it does not need to be in our fee for that is protected, and will stay in place.
Great. Okay, thanks. Anything else? Okay. Let's move to adjourn then, if Carrie's done with her report.
See you on the 11th.
Anybody would like to move to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Okay, is there a second?
Sure, I'll second it.
All right, all in favor?
Bye.
All right, you guys have a great one. Thank you.
Thank you.